You can't be an entrepreneur. You can't be a business owner. You don't have what it takes. How many successful businesses started without incorporating? I'm John Williams, the president of Inc. Now. For 39 years, Inc. Now has been incorporating first-time entrepreneurs just like you. Over 15,000 companies, from mom and pop businesses to worldwide enterprises. IncNow.com, based in Delaware, can have you incorporated in only a few minutes for $298. Inc. Now makes starting your LLC easy. Learn more about what Inc. Now can do for you. On the web, visit incnow.com. That's incnow.com. What do you have to lose? If you think you can't be an entrepreneur, then don't. I'm here to tell you, you can. Plant a seed. Inc. Now. Dreamers wanted.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of Evolution Strategies Radio. I'm Carolyn Lighty, your host, and we welcome you to the show. We are talking today about the top most ignored financial trends of 2013. A lot of the publishers and media outlets that you're familiar with are doing a year in review, and we thought we would do the same thing, specifically as it relates to our small business listeners and how we can help them get prepared for 2014. Joining me today are Dr. John Stapleford and Omar Borla, Omar, who are principals of DECON First. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Carolyn.
Morning.
Good morning, John. We had a little technical difficulty there, huh?
I guess so.
You're so funny. Anyway, so you're on your way for the holidays to visit family. Is that right?
That's correct. We're taking presents to the grandchildren.
Oh, wow. So you're like Santa and Mrs. Claus.
Yeah, it so will be loved.
So you have an ulterior motive?
Absolutely. I'm an economist.
I'm sorry?
I'm an economist, you know.
I see. That's right. So, of course, you have an ulterior motive. Also in the studio, so John is joining us from the road, and as he's traveling to Indiana, I guess, and Omar is joining us in studio. Good afternoon, Omar.
Good afternoon, Carolyn.
Very good, very good. So remind our listeners a little bit about who you guys are, a little bit about the company and what you do, John.
Well, Omar and I have together about 70 years of experience in economics. I'm mostly applied microeconomics. I'm more macroeconomics. Omar had 20 years in investment banking. And neither of us figured that we were ready to retire. And we also felt that there was a missing component to economic consulting, and that is taking the economic data and walking it through that if-then-what process. In other words, if inflation is going up, then supplies will cost you more, and what should you do as a business? Perhaps you should buy your inventory now rather than later. So we both are trying to find ways to help out businesses in Delaware.
That's perfect. So the solution that you're offering, would you say that that's different than the other similar economic data companies out there, providers, researchers, and so forth?
And Omar can speak to this as well, but my experience is I've worked for Moody's Analytics and worked in the state government in New Jersey, and I've worked for private consultants. And generally what they do is present the economic analysis, but they don't take it to the next step and tell the client, okay, what does this mean about how you managing your business or your organization?
And
Omar?
Yeah, Omar, go ahead.
Yeah, basically that's it. I mean, just our approach is basically we work to help the business community to find the right position within the market, within the economic cycle. And one of the important things is we do not make policy recommendations. We don't get involved in economic policy that the state government or the national government, the Treasury or Fed can do. We just analyze them and we see what is the impact for the business community, for especially the small business, and how they can position themselves to take advantage of that, or at least minimize the damage if there is any damage from wrong policies. But we don't care in changing the policy itself. For us, it's data.
And just if you had to guess, how many businesses, and I'm not even going to say small businesses right now, but if we look at your target audience, which is the state of Delaware, how many of the businesses that you've come in contact with are actually or had been looking at this kind of data as kind of a way to forecast what may happen and how they need to react? John?
That's a great question, because as you know, you've owned your own business for almost 30 years. People who own a business are so busy every day, working 80 hours a week, that many instances they don't take the time to step back and look at the larger picture and the larger trends. And so in some ways, for the type of service we're talking about providing, you almost have to first go out and market yourself and help them to understand the importance of getting data like this, getting really insights like this. And that's where, although the listeners wouldn't know it, but Carolyn has been helping us. Carolyn is a expert market strategist. She's been helping us get the word out to the business community.
Well, that's good. So, and when you think about, it's kind of an education process that they need to go through, because as you say, we're busy, in the day-to-day, how do I make money today, and how do I keep my employees employed and pay, payroll met? And as far as what's going to happen, based on whatever trends and data that's out there, it can be overwhelming.
Well, one of the prime examples going into the last recession to me was in the nonprofit world, including colleges and universities, who were just assuming that the high growth rates in donations, charitable giving, would never change. And every recession has taken the wind out of the sails of charitable giving. A lot. It's the economy may go down 3%, but charitable giving will go down 10%. And many nonprofits and colleges and universities weren't even prepared for that. They had no clue that might be coming.
It's interesting. I saw some news items, even just during the giving season, now that we're in the holiday season right now, Toys for Tots was talking about 50%, donations being off 50% from last year. And would you attribute something like that to the economy and what we've been experiencing?
Oh, absolutely. And the extent to which charitable giving is off depends upon what the charitable clause is. Like in the case of colleges and universities, where you have many educated alumni, right now they have stock portfolios that are soaring, and so the colleges and universities actually can't pull collect the money fast enough. And Toys for Tots, I imagine they get more of a normal base of people giving, and as we'll talk about, people with less formal education, since the recession, have really been struggling.
Okay. What are there specific businesses that you think were affected the most by the various trends that were ignored perhaps this past year? Were there specific businesses that you think suffered?
Well, I can start, and Omar can pick it up. Economists look at customer demand according to the level of income, gross income of a household. And certain goods like furniture, new appliances, recreation vehicles, electronics, even something like sporting goods, having somebody come and clean your house, all those things, the demand for them or the consumption of those things goes up faster than income does, and then it goes down faster when income goes down. And so those are the areas of business that have been most affected by the very, very slow growing personal income that we've had since the recession hit. Omar?
Yeah, that's perfectly true. But electronics, all the big ticket products have been more affected. Those that depend. One exception is the automobile sales, but that is specifically a result of dealers and the manufacturers of really have very good financing. You probably, Carolyn, and everybody have on your audience have seen the advertisement on TV, for really some of them I saw the other day, $99 per month, and I say, oh my God, I mean, I'm spending more in gasoline with mine. Why I don't buy one new one? But that is one of the few sectors I would say that whose demand depend on the level of income and of course employment that has been doing perfectly well. But
Carolyn, in all those instances, all those types of businesses, including automobile, the way they've been able to keep people coming is very steep price discounts. And a good example is full-service restaurants. Since the recession, the demand for fast food restaurants has gone way up as people have less money to afford. So the full-service restaurants have had to give out more coupons, have more special deals. 2 people can eat for $20 or whatever. So it's the slow growth in personal income that has made it much more of a battle for market share.
And that leads us right into the number one of our top 5 most ignored financial trends of 2013, slow growth in personal income. So I'm going to give you an opportunity again to tell us what that means and what impact that has had, even though you've covered a little bit of it already in your comments.
Well, personal income is composed of 3 things, 3 major components that economists follow. One would be wages and earnings. That would include the earnings of a owner of a business. The second component is interest, dividends, and rent. Primarily the dividends, but interest also kicks in there sometimes with higher interest rates. And then finally, transfer payments. And transfer payments are Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance. So these 3 components are what economists track over time. Since 1990 in Delaware, up to the recession, personal income was growing at 8% a year. That far outstrips inflation. But since the recession really took the wind out of our sails. We even had about 5 quarters where we had negative growth in personal income. Where we've averaged about 4% a year. Right now, the personal income on the last year-over-year basis grew about 2.5%. That's very weak, and it means that for any business, it's harder to find people who are willing to pay.
And is that trend something that's indicative of what you see in other states, or is Delaware, somehow different in that respect?
I would say that in states in the South, Southeast, some states in the Middle West have much higher growth in earnings. The weak spot for Delaware in that personal income mix is earnings or wages. Our wages, we have a high unemployment rate, and so employers aren't compelled to increase wages, and so the wage component of personal income in Delaware has been going up, even less than inflation for 3 to 4 years.
So one of the things that you indicated you actually were giving a preview of the Delaware Economic Brief that will be coming out tomorrow. That'll be available through your website. Folks will be able to pick that up at deconfirst.com. That's DECONFIRST.com. But one of the things that this translates into, as you mentioned before, was that the demand for larger ticket items and luxury goods and services, like you mentioned, furniture, appliances, electronics, and so forth, will continue on a slow recovery. And you mentioned deep discounting would be really important if they're wanting to make sales going into 2014. Is that correct?
That would be correct. And when you think of it, Carolyn, economics is not rocket science. And when any of those items like a new appliance or furniture, what you're talking about is things that you could delay the purchase of.
Right. That makes sense.
You don't need to replace your living room sofa. You can go for another couple of years.
Well, it depends. If I've had it for 25 years, come on, it might be on its last leg, literally. But so what I wanted to do in listening to, how you've analyzed the data and what the indicators are, I felt it would be helpful for our listening audience to know what kind of marketing tip that I would apply if I were helping them with marketing and to help them get through these tough times. So being that consumer spending for larger ticket items and luxury goods and services has become a more tentative decision-making process that they're going into now is where they're looking for quality, durability, affordability, and the long-term value of that particular item that or service that they're purchasing. So another issue is that consumers are going to also be looking at using their credit lines a lot more carefully. We're not just going to the store and just throwing down that card anymore and just saying, hey, yeah, just charge it, charge. So people are being much more tentative with their decisions today. So a successful marketer has to position their goods and services as high quality and having extraordinary value. And they have to be able to give the consumer the confidence that they need in order to feel that their money is being spent wisely. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I think that's a terrific insight. It's way beyond what all an economist thinks of is cut the price, or as Omar said, make the financing easier. But I think you're getting more to the heart of what drives consumer spending.
Yeah, and the other thing there, and you say to the heart of it, because something that you'll hear an awful lot of as we continue into 2014 is that enhanced customer experiences that integrate mobile technology, customer reviews, reputation monitoring. All of those things are things that are very important for small businesses to be concerned with as we move into tougher times where people are taking a longer time and looking for other resources before they make their purchasing decision. Everyone's being really, really careful about when they're spending their dollars these days. So that kind of sums it up pretty well for our first one, slow growth and personal income. And we've come up with some solutions as to how some of our business owners can go out there and still make some money given the slow economy. The next of our top 5 is increasing inequality in the distribution of income. So I think you mentioned that's like an hourglass right now.
Yeah, and Omar can chime in here because we've looked at more of the data and the research on this. But what's happened over the last at least decade is people who have college education above or good skill training, their wages has actually gone up faster than inflation. And for people with less formal education, as manufacturing has tapered off, construction has tapered off, those folks have actually experienced a decrease in their wages relative to inflation. So you have a bifurcated market that businesses are facing, and they have to decide if they try to appeal to consumers across that market or just the higher end. Omar, do you want to talk about the wage distribution thing?
Yeah, John, I mean, that's clear. And also, we are doing some research right now, working on what happened with the blue-collar occupations in the state of Delaware before and after the crisis, the 2007-2009 crisis. And one of the things we found is that the labor force on blue-collar occupations shrank a lot. At the same time, so many of them, just because of age or lack of technological knowledge, couldn't find another job after the crisis almost ended. So some of them just went into the low skills or no skills occupations that refer to personal services, food, and so on. And the others that really improved were those that went into education or have higher education, so they improve and move it up in the scales. But when you look at the blue collars, that was the typical American middle class, the one that fought in World War II, the one that made the country in the 20th century, they have been basically left aside. And one of the important things is that when you look at the value of the product of the manufacturing sector has increased, and the productivity per worker has increased. So what happened is that labor, blue-collar occupation has been replaced by capital, so machinery and so on. So that is something that really bad, and that explains a little bit the disparity and in terms of income. So that makes the distribution of income more biased toward the upper and the lower end. Yeah.
So if I think about the blue-collar worker in Delaware, we're talking about the ones that were with, the industries would be the automotive manufacturing industries.
Well, in part is that, but when you look at all the manufacturing industry have been restructuring itself, and the crisis itself was basically the fuse, the one that really gave the opportunity to manufacturers to do that. And when I say the opportunity, I'm not saying it's good or bad. If you're a blue collar, clearly it's bad. And but that was one of the things that is also behind the increasing inequality in the distribution of income.
So if we think of that as being a major issue, then what do we do to better educate or provide retraining for that blue-collar worker in Delaware?
Go
ahead.
I think Carol, you hit the nail on the head that the key to this is education, because we've gone from over 40,000 manufacturing jobs in Delaware to about 25,000 today, 24,000. And even within those jobs, so the manufacturing jobs that are left, fewer and fewer of them are blue-collar jobs. More and more are jobs that are like engineers, people with market experience, people with computer experience. So if young people, while they're in school, if they can't pick up the skills that allow them to first just be a little competitive in the entry level they would market, but secondly, continue their education, I mean, they're done. I mean, they're going to be in, if you want to call it the entitlement society. I mean, they're going to have a very tough time being able to support themselves, find employment that can help allow them to support themselves. So, yes, it's education, and that's something we can't do anything about. If you may have run into this, Carolyn. Almost any employer you talk to in Delaware will tell you that they have a difficult time finding qualified labor.
Yeah. Well, and that's still going to be a challenge unless we have some major effort to retrain and to also emphasize in our educational system. Going on to college may not always be the answer, but secondary education that teaches you a trade, or just helping to improve your computer skills may be the way to get you to that next job. So when we look at the increased inequality in the distribution of income, as a small business owner, what does that tell me? That tells me that I have folks at the top end in terms of a high-end household income, and then I have those at the lower end that may be lower or middle class. And even the middle class is having more difficulties now than I think we've seen in quite a long time, or, just based on the economy. So as a marketing tip, retail, real estate, appliance dealers, hospitality, car dealerships, all of these can successfully target top-earning households with traditional and emerging media technologies that capitalize on the buying behavior and media preferences among these types of decision makers. We know that social media, we know that local and mobile, all of these things are important to targeting these high-end people that still have money, although they're going to be much more frugal about how they're spending it, but it's important to get out there and to nurture those types of opportunities to sell to those types of buyers. So that's one of the things that I'm recommending there. on the lower end, rental communities, real estate management firms, moving and storage, furniture rental, discount retailers, as we talked about before. These are people that are looking for a deal. So anything where you're able to do daily, weekly, and monthly deals, those types of programs that utilize email, text marketing, and social media will also help those types of businesses capitalize on what there is out there in terms of buying power. So that's good. The next one the number 3 of our top 5 most ignored financial trends of 2013 is the growing importance of transfer payments. Now, you talked a little bit about what that means so that we understood what a transfer payment involved, but give us a little bit more information about what that means.
Okay. The largest component of transfer payments right now is Social Security, because the wave of the baby boomers is hitting retirement years or coming up on the retirement years, but also Medicare. Medicare is up to at least $550 billion, and Medicaid is getting close to that. And then you have, with the slow economy, the unemployment insurance, and all those programs are tied to inflation by law. And so they're not going to go, the annual Social Security payments that are given out are not going to go up faster than a little bit less than inflation, which right now is around, at best, 1.5%. So and that component of personal income in Delaware, and it is true in the nation as well, that component of personal income transfer payments has gone from 10% of personal income 30 years ago to 20% today. So increasingly, a major component, one says that your personal income is going to be much more slower growing than we've experienced with personal income in the past. Mm-hmm. And it's a mix, Carolyn. It ties partly back into the increasing inequality. When you think of the Social Security, at least close to half of the households headed by a person 65 and over in Delaware, Social Security is just about it in terms of income. Mm-hmm. Now, the other half of the households, they actually have relatively high current income per person, and they have very high wealth per person. But so the Social Security is a mix in terms of what businesses face. But at least half of those elderly households, just like non-elderly households who are in poverty, are really struggling. And then with the Medicare and Medicaid, and this has started to happen in November, hospital admissions in the United States went down for the first time in 10 years. We've also seen, both nationally and in Delaware, that the price of healthcare prices, which have been going up far faster than inflation, mm-hmm. are now equal to or less than inflation. And we've also seen a tailing off in the growth of healthcare employment. Now, you say, well, what does all that mean? With Obamacare, if Medicare is struggling anyhow, their trust fund is struggling, Medicaid, the state of Delaware, just can't afford to expand Medicaid, period. I mean, they're up over $700 million. Medicaid is the largest single item in the state of Delaware general fund budget, okay, and they're up against the limit. Mm-hmm. So what does all this mean? All these things mean that the healthcare industry, which has been the growth driver for Delaware, and for inter-business sales, is just not going to be able to continue to be a growth driver. So transfer payments overall feed back into slower growth in personal income in the future, and then otherwise particularly are going to impact on the healthcare industry. When you look at the spending in Delaware on Medicare and Medicaid, it's equal to 80% of the earnings of the healthcare industry in Delaware.
Wow. So if I'm a Delaware business and, the majority of my customers are baby boomers, what can I expect? I hate to say,
Well, we can work with businesses because the consumer expenditure patterns of households 55 to 64 and 65 65 and over are very different than younger households, and so you can actually anticipate, where they're going to be spending money. And among other things, they tend not to buy new cars, or at least as frequently. They tend to, believe it or not, they tend to buy more vegetables.
You're funny.
They do tend to spend more on utilities, particularly heat.
Mm-hmm.
You get older, so there's certain areas of spending that rise as with age, and other areas that really do fall away, like entertainment. So it's possible for businesses to, if some businesses do it, Carolyn, you know this better than I would. Some businesses have customer loyalty, and their customer base ages and still stays with them. Like a shop. The average age of your customers is going up because those are your customers, and they're the ones who are loyal,
and they're going to stay. Right, exactly.
Yeah, they have to be aware of. But anyhow, all this feeds back to, and what you were talking about before, with the increasing inequality of the income distribution. You're just going to have certain pockets of households that are find it very difficult to find the ability to pay, even on essential things.
Yeah. What's interesting is in my research of the baby boomers and their buying and purchasing habits, it's 10 years ago, all of the advertising and marketing you would see would kind of almost amplify, the fact that I'm getting older. And it's like, you got this pain, you got that pain. Yes, I do have it. But now some of the more savvy marketers are looking at almost from the opposite angle, more quality of life type issues are being addressed, improving your quality of life, fun and vitality. You see more and more of those things. And going into 2014, I'm predicting the same, more of the same, because we're looking for aging in place more so than aging in a facility. We're looking for aging gracefully and do I act my age kind of thing? Do I have to, I may be X number, but what am I, how do I feel? What do I feel like? And maybe this is not a time for me to just sit on, in a rocking chair, but a time for me to live, the second half of my life or what have you, with more dignity, and, they want to fulfill their bucket lists and that type of thing. So, you have dating sites now for age, for the baby boomers. So it's kind of like it's not over, so make me have a lot more fun as I get older, kind of thing. And those are the marketers that are still making plenty of money from this particular segment. And you're right. Again, daily deals, coupon promotions, loyalty and referral programs, saving clubs. These are all excellent marketing tactics for addressing the desires and this new lifestyle that baby boomers are having to adopt.
And you make a number of really good observations, but one of which is the elderly population is growing in two ways. One is people who are aging in place. And in instances, those are people who can't either sell their house or can't afford to move. Although there are some people with the means who decide to just stay put. And the other component of growth in Delaware especially are older households moving in from the Washington, D.C. area, from New Jersey, who are retiring along the beach. Those households are an unusual market segment. They're very, very well educated. They have a high level of wealth. They're buying very expensive homes. And so that's a whole different... And perhaps one message to businesses that I see to be like you're hitting on too is the devil's in the details. You've got to understand your different market segments. You can't just assume that everybody's the same.
Exactly. And Omar, you just took your mom out for her birthday.
Yes.
I believe your mom is actually listening. But, when I think of aging and aging gracefully, your mom is 90?
Well, I publicly cannot say that.
I forgot.
Okay.
Okay.
But my mom, yes, she has,
That's wonderful.
came to the country to cherish her birthday with the grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
That's great.
Okay, so it has been very good. And I would like to say something in the language that she understands. So, chiquita, espero que hayas tenido un feliz cumpleaños y que tengas muchísimos más. Which means I hope that you had a very good birthday, and I hope you will have too many more.
Wonderful, wonderful. But did you want to make some more additional comments about what we were talking about as relates to this market? And
yes, well, the situation in terms of the growing importance of transfer payments. Let's face it, baby boomers we are getting older.
Yes, we are.
And not only it's been noticed on the less hair, and we don't fit on the jeans as well as we did several years ago, but the thing is. When you look, I mean, you ask everybody, say, okay, Social Security, the people say, well, Social Security clearly was something of a help in retirement, but it wasn't considered to be the main retirement
source of income,
during retirement. Mm-hmm. But when you talk to them, and they have been hit by the financial crisis. Remember in 2000, with the 401ks, saving accounts were almost destroyed, and then in 2007, 2009, also another problem. People that have lost their job and haven't been able to continue working at the same level, or continue working at all. We have a lot of discouraged workers, so they know that they cannot count solely on Social Security, but they will have no other other alternative. Sorry, that Social Security keep working in whatever they can to supplement that. So clearly, the transfer payments are going to be even more growing in the near and medium term. They will be more and more important on that. So that is something that small business have to keep in mind, and every decision they do had to be with that in the back of their mind.
We talk about, what are the alternatives? If Social Security, by and large, has become my only source of income, what else can I do to make ends meet? And looking at the AARP website, you'll see that they talk an awful lot about the high percentage of retired and seniors who have either gone back to work or started their own businesses.
Right.
And I think that that's very interesting. And then you guys retired and decided that was too boring a life for you, or what? I don't know, John. Were you too bored after retiring?
No, I mean the reason we started DECON first is because we both recognized that we're not the type of people to go out and play tennis and play golf, and that we enjoy. We really do love what we're doing. We love economics, and we'd love to be able to, with help from people like yourself, to make the connection to business people and help them survive over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what we want to do, and that's what we're going to do. Whether you like it or not, you're going to survive. Okay, so number 4 on our top 5 most ignored financial trends of 2013 is Fed tapering. According to the statement here, it says Fed tapering began and the world didn't end.
Exactly.
What does that mean, Omar?
Well, that everybody has been talking about the Fed beginning of the tapering and so on, and not too many people have clear what that means, basically.
Yes.
If they think something that is called a quantitative easing, and number 3, because they have been quantitative easing 1, 2, and this is the number 3. So the Fed has been buying, mortgage bonds and treasury bonds, mortgage bonds from the private sector, just to maintain the prices of those bonds and take those bonds out of the market and free more money to buy more bonds, so to help the mortgage sector, so people, having to not necessarily to pay higher credit. So the idea was to maintain long-term interest rates, 30 years, and everybody's perfectly aware of the fixed 30 years mortgage interest rate. So maintain those as low as possible to facilitate people buying houses, refinancing, and so on, and to help the industry. The idea is basically trying to recover the economy as fast as they can. So they began. There was, at the beginning, when federal chairman in Ben Bernanke in May of this year, he told to Congress that the Fed was going to start tapering the purchase of bonds, so reducing the amount.
Tapering as in reducing the number.
Reducing the amount. So from the 85 billion that they were buying of those bonds per month, reducing the amount, the market, was a little on a small crisis at the moment, and we have an increase in interest rates, the treasuries, the mortgage bonds, and they went up like crazy. As a matter of fact, in less than 30 days, the long-term interest rate, the 30 years mortgage rate, went up like 80 basis points, which means almost 1%. So, well, everybody has been, and that was when the Fed announced the possibility of the Fed starting that. So clearly the market discounted already the increase in interest rates. Now, last week, the Fed officially announced that they will, start the tapering. And in January, they will reduce the amount to $75 billion. So very modest cut in that purchase. And you have at least 6 more months if they continue with $10 billion. So they will have 6 more, actually 7. The last one had to be $5 billion, but they will have, 7 more months of reduction on that. Well, the war didn't end as many analysts were expecting. As a matter of fact, the 30 years, the 10 years and the 30 years were up, 4 basis points. So that is 0.04 of the of the 1%. So this really not too much on that.
No real change. Yeah.
So, but in my opinion, there was also a change in policy, and I consider that the change in policy is very important. The Fed, in addition to announcing the beginning of the tapering, they also said that they will continue having low interest rates. Remember that the short-term interest rates are almost at 0%. And they will continue that even if the unemployment rates go below 6.5%. 6.5%. Remember, right now the unemployment rate is at 7%, and 6.5% was considered the target, the moment where the Fed was going to stop this policy and start reversing the policy. So basically, increasing interest rates. Now they are saying that this policy of low interest rate will continue even below the 6.5%, which is basically what is saying, okay, in 2014 we are not going to increase interest rates, and maybe sometime in 2015, but it will depend of many aspects. What is this? The meaning of this? And the meaning of this is that cheap financing will continue for a while. Okay, that is so. The Fed will continue printing money.
That's a good thing. Yes,
right.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing as long as inflation doesn't start picking up. Okay, which is a characteristic of this post-crisis over here. So we are in that sense. That is a very important change, and I will make a little advertisement if possible.
Sure.
This change to me is referred also to the fact that the unemployment rate really doesn't explain exactly how many are unemployed. The unemployment rate has a lot of bias in their calculations. So DECON First is finishing the touches on a report that sometime tomorrow, we are going to release in our site. And where we analyze the situation of what is the impact really, and how is the actual unemployment rate or the amount of unemployed people in the state of Delaware. We are just basically following the lead of the Fed. There was a paper from the Fed where they show that the unemployment rate is at least 2% higher than is being recorded. Because one of the things that improve the unemployment rate is that the labor force has been shrinking. So we have a lot of people that have been leaving the labor force. Normally, we consider people leaving the labor force because, well, you exceed your 65 years old, you just retire, so on. But this is not the case right now. The case is right now that people get discouraged because they don't get a job. So it goes beyond the demographics.
Right.
It goes beyond the demographic. So this is in my view, this the Fed saying that they are going to continue with these policies even beyond the 6.5% unemployment is a recognition that this unemployment rate is not really very true. So we are going to continue because we know that there are more people unemployed and so on. So, and I made the advertisement for.
No, that's good. So we'll remind everyone that they'll be able to pick up that report on the website when we get to the end of the show. But yeah, the marketing tip as relates to this, and I do want to ask some more questions actually before I get to the marketing tip, because if I'm to hear and understand what you've just explained about Fed tapering and the purpose of it initially was to keep the interest rates low. On the opposite end of that, was that successful? Were we successful in somehow infusing a whole onslaught of financing and all that? You're like, what?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think it's too early to say if I have been successful. Clearly, it has been not as successful as the Fed was expecting and almost everybody was expecting. This recession has been dragging for too long. The recovery is very, very tame, very slow. The last big recession, deep recession we had was in 81, 82, but the recovery was immediate after that. And unemployment went down and activity went up. And in this case, I mean, the situation has not been the thing, and we try by increasing fiscal spending. We try we increase the government debt tremendously. And we also have, this monetary policy that should have been working. But clearly the negative impact on income and on the financial system and everybody's pocket has been so high that it has been very, very difficult to consider that the policy has been successful. Of course, it didn't hurt.
Right. And this by itself is not going to fix
But it's not going to fix by itself. There had to be many changes. But as I said before, we do not evaluate policy. We do not recommend what you do. We help people to position in what. That's why I will stop my comment over there.
John, did you have any comments on that you wanted to make before I?
No, just to be helpful to some of the listeners, the way the Federal Reserve was able to go out and buy these mortgage revenue bonds and buy Treasury bonds was by printing money. The Federal Reserve has the authority, even though it's a quasi-government institution, it's really more of a private institution, it has the authority to print money. When you throw a lot of money out into a stagnant economy, what you expect is the price of goods and services to go up. In this instance, that's not what happened. What happened instead is the price of gold went up, the price of corn went up, the price of oil went up, the stock market went crazy, and that's why there's so much concern about the tapering, because people assume once the Fed started tapering, then these asset prices would start to collapse, and people would feel like they could consume less. They'd have to consume less because they would be less wealthy. As Omar said, the good news is that from what he's seen, this adjustment, this expectation in anticipation of tapering has already started to occur. So the adjustment is not going to be as large, but it's going to hurt. It's already hurting the housing market. It's already hurting housing sales. The mortgage rate is bumping up to, I think, around 5% for the fixed 30-year mortgage. So, but the bigger message is, as Omar said, it's not going to be as painful as we thought, and interest rates will not go up as dramatically as you might think once the Fed stops throwing money out into the economy.
Mm-hmm. Really good. So our marketing tip as it relates to that is that retailers could be able to finance, have financing programs that were still at the lower, rates, pass on some of the financing savings to their customers, and perhaps entice others to come in to purchase product at the lower financed rate. Also, a good marketing alternative could be to expand financing terms that would be direct with low-cost financial terms. I'm just reading some notes here. Financial terms at low or no interest. There we go. The no interest. And you see that everywhere. I mean, how many times have you seen this in terms of furniture, appliances, any of the big ticket items? There's a lot of no financing type programs out there. So there are ways to work within what we're having to deal with. As you were saying, you guys don't affect policy. You kind of say, this is what you kind of tell it like it is, and then say, okay, now this is how you can deal with it and how you can still maintain or sustain your business. And I think that's fantastic. The last of our top 5 is consumer distress remains strong. Now, that's almost written in a positive statement, but we're certainly in distress. And we've been talking about that. That kind of runs through everything that we've been talking about, the distress and the tentative purchasing decisions and things like that. Omar, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, is to some extent that, I'm sorry, the humidity is affecting me. No, that's okay.
I'll go get it.
It's just the humidity. One of the things we monitor basically is all the information that we can get about the personal financial conditions in the state of Delaware, and there are some indexes also compiled by non-profit organizations that help consumers to put their finances in order. Okay, and they put several of those of those characteristics together, and they come out with an index of distress. So the distress basically is how much consumers are putting stress on their pocket. I mean, how much they can increase their indebtedness and how much they can do. Well, so the thing is that there is a great degree of indebtedness by consumers already, which is putting a lot of distress in their capacity to purchase. And so when there has been some good or positive indicators. One of them is that the debt on credit cards has been reducing a little bit, from the last quarter of 2012 to the third quarter of 2013, the latest data we have available.
That's great.
The year hasn't end yet. But, they have 3 differences. I mean, those that are late from 30 days to 89 days, those that are late from 90 and above, and those that are really no paying. So basically non-accrual interest is those that have very high possibilities of going into default. So there has been a little reduction, a constant reduction in all the 3 of them, but the 30 to 90 days have been increasing during the last quarter, which is not terrible yet, but it will depend what happens with that. So means that, well, credit cards continue okay, but people, credit cards interests are very high.
Yes,
so that's,
yes.
If they start falling behind, they are paying interest, and that leaves a lot less pocket income free to purchase.
Yeah.
So the other thing is the
don't you think that I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
At the last quarter being the holiday season, doesn't it aren't there usually that kind of delays in payments around that time? I know a lot of people will say, well, it's Christmas, it's the holidays.
Right.
I'm going to have to wait till January. I don't care about my
Right. That is true. And also the weather helps.
Yes.
We don't have snow, so this is look like the first day of spring instead of the first day of winter. So, and I'm sure that the shopping season, especially the last month of the year, will be very good on that.
Yeah.
But the problem will start appearing after January when the statements from the banks or the credit cards come back. The other thing that is important important is, because it played a big role during the last financial crisis, was the equity loans, okay, home equity loans. So basically, people that have a mortgage but have some equity built, so they pay a large portion of their loan, and they can borrow against that equity built over there. And that is one thing that is not performing so well, and is getting a little worrisome. We have been talking with some local banks over here,
I was thinking.
and they share our view on that is getting a little worrisome. So, and you remember that one of the cases, that one of the problems with people that lost their house and so on, because they have a second, a second loan on equity, and they couldn't pay either of them. So. So that is one of the things. So, in my view, is consumption will improve. Of course, I mean, if we still having some sort of, policy of cheap policy, whatever, people can refinance that. Probably they can go to a fixed interest rate loan to pay the credit cards. But nevertheless, we do not open the champagne yet. Let's keep the champagne on the ice, and let's wait. The party is not here yet. Okay, but the things are improving.
Yes,
but probably not improving fast enough, like people will feel it.
Yes. And so I'm going to give give you a chance to give some parting remarks as we go into 2012. Give us some words of wisdom. Give us something positive to look forward to.
Well, I guess the most positive thing is that increasingly people are realizing what can sustain them over this slow economy, and part of that is returning to school, as you mentioned. Part of it is just hard work, and part is family ties. I think the reporters tend to look down on it, but I think one of the nice things that's happened is a lot of young people are still living with their parents for an extra year or two. Yeah. And as a parent, I don't dislike that. And I think there's more intergenerational sharing of resources and concern with one another. We aren't saying everybody can just live on their own and take care of themselves. So those are positive things. So, Carolyn, did you have any reaction to the consumer recommendations for businesses on this consumer distress thing?
Omar and I talked about that before the show in terms of what kind of marketing tips we would add to that. And we actually didn't come up with anything before the show started. So do you have some ideas? Do you have some ideas as to what we can do in that area?
What would be interesting, and economists can do this, is to try to look at the home equity loan industry, and see where the people borrowing that money spent money. I don't think they were borrowing the money for hospital procedures or care. I think in many instances it was for things that were a little less tangent, like vacations and so forth. Yeah. Now, it could be in the last couple of years that more and more home equity loan money has been going back into the person's home with improvements, because they can't move, so they figure, okay, I'll fix up my home. Right. That would be fine, and that would be a good sign.
Good use, yes, right.
Another thing I was thinking, John, is one thing that our parents use a lot. Okay, and I don't see that offering being offered around too much, and it's the fact that layaway, it is one thing. If you have somebody that really have a lot of debt on the credit cards and so on, so you offer a layaway, and if they have a W-2, that is an alternative.
Yeah. Well, we are running out of time. I want to Let everyone know that DECON First uses economics to strengthen Delaware businesses. This is accomplished by providing accurate, objective, and relevant analysis of the economy, coupled with best practice recommendations that deliver new customers. To find out more about their services and about these indicators we've just talked about, you can visit their website at www.deconfirst.com. We thank both of you for being with us this afternoon, and we look forward to catching you guys next week. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can't. Do those magic words motivate you? Has anyone ever told you that you can't? You can't be an entrepreneur. You can't be a business owner. You don't have what it takes. How many successful businesses started without incorporating? I'm John Williams, the president of Inc. Now. For 39 years, Inc. Now has been incorporating first-time entrepreneurs just like you. Over 15,000 companies, from mom and pop businesses to worldwide enterprises. IncNow.com, based in Delaware, can have you incorporated in only a few minutes for $298. Inc. Now makes starting your LLC easy. Learn more about what Inc. Now can do for you. On the web, visit incnow.com. That's incnow.com. What do you have to lose? If you think you can't be an entrepreneur, then don't. I'm here to tell you, you can. Plant a seed. Inc. Now. Dreamers wanted.
WFAI Salem.
Join Linwood Jackson every Sunday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. for the all-new Linwood Jackson radio show on WFAI 1510 AM. Every Sunday, Linwood will tackle the issues close to your heart, from civil rights to politics to community affairs around the first state and the nation. Linwood speaks on the issues facing citizens in our area on a weekly basis, but his show is so much more. Linwood will talk about his passions, such as dancing and traveling the world and helping people broaden their horizons while embracing different cultures. That's the Linwood Jackson radio show every Sunday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on the all-new WFAI 1510 AM.
I need y'all to put your hands together. Oh my, I believe the blessings of my God shall overtake me. Oh my, I believe the blessings of my God shall never forsake me. Listen, oh my, the blessings of my God shall overtake me. I'm a walking yes, I am. I'm a walking in favor. Anybody in here walking like me? I'm walking in favor. By faith I am. I'm walking. Y'all see that? Listen, I just believe. Somebody help me, please.
Jackson every Sunday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. for the all-new Linwood Jackson radio show on WFAI 1510 AM. Every Sunday, Linwood will tackle the issues close to your heart from